So, I'm back. I don't know if this is gonna make it harder for me in the edit process since I haven't started that, but we're gonna figure that out as we go. I lied. I said I would be back. I think in 2 days after getting the third book of the trilogy. But I completely and utterly lied. I got the book right away, but I started playing Rising, and I did that for even till this moment, and I've been reading much slower, and so a week passed by. Yeah, I have a lot to say about this series, or this trilogy, and I wanted to wrap up my feelings on it. I don't know if there's a lot. There's a lot that went on in this week. And this is the only book I read, kind of. This is my only non-leisure book I read, so that's a thing. Um, check out this book, right? So, yeah. So how should I start this? Well, I came in to the series as I complained last time about how I didn't know what I was getting into. I just wanted to read this black author, and because I knew they were a sci-fi fantasy author, right? And then I read one book, and then I read the second book, and it was the same thing. I'm dating a monster, same trope. First book, second book, third book was the trope I like. I like the I am a monster dating trope, which is slightly different than I am dating a monster. I I eat that up. I eat the other ones up too, but like I eat that up and I enjoy it. So I enjoy this book way more than the first two books, but I read it slower. I didn't read as much in it. It wasn't as compelling, and I also felt that I knew where the story was going for a lot of the story. In terms of like reveals, there were some reveals that I was not expecting, but the reveal that happened in like the last 150 chapters, I mean 150 pages, I expected it for like the beginning of the book when the character came in. So I'm just, you know, a lot of stuff. Um, so I wanted to give a review of like this whole entire trilogy overall, the Inheritance Trilogy by NK Jemisin, and this is that review. I think this is that review. Yeah, I haven't even thought of what the score would be yet. Um, and I don't know. I don't know if I would score it either. I don't know if I'm that. I don't know what my scoring system would be. So we're not gonna score it. We're basically just gonna just talk about what was annoying for me and like what did I like and what was hard hitting. Um, I'm just gonna rant. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna rant about this trilogy, and then I'm gonna move on to rant about some other stuff, and we're gonna do that. Um, I'm just gonna rant like forever. Um, yeah. Um, yeah. I don't know what to like. Okay, so you go into this book, and this is the plot, right? So you go into the book. You know the first two trilogies. It's about this world with 100,000 kingdoms, and you're just in it. You're in it for a while, and our main characters say or Ca or Sieh. I'm gonna pronounce his name Say, and and he's a god. He's a godling, not exactly a god if you know the difference, right? So you have your gods, and this is power level hierarchy, okay? Like magic juice hierarchy. You have your gods, you have your godlings, you have your demons, and you have your humans. You get gods. Well, you also have a Maelstrom. So you have Maelstrom, which created the gods, and the gods created the godlings. The godlings dated humans to create demons, and gods. There's also like a minor hierarchy amongst the god system and the godling system of godlings and gods. If they date, they create elantids, which are like weird godlings that you just their vibes you don't know. And so if you know from the original two books and the trilogy, Say is a godling, the oldest of the godlings, super strong godling, the epitome, the person of mischief and childhood and thievery and tricks, and supposed to represent childhood, which is just a weird ambiguous saying, um, which is problematic. It's interesting. It's like, mm, we'll get back to this. Um, okay, so say it's supposed to represent God childhood as a godling, as the oldest godling. And so say is our main character for this series. And if you read the first book and you read like the back talk of the author, Jemisin, and saying like Say was one of their favorite characters to write and to do within the first book. So it's very nice, and I very much appreciated this. Like in the third book, I'm coming back to one of my favorite characters from the first book, and we're gonna do an in-depth look, right? So, as an author, like writing your fanfic, go for it. So, so Say is our monster who is dating, and he's also wrestling with this idea of his wants, his wants. So supposedly in the book makes it a feel of like being a part, like childhood is also about wanting things that you can't have, which is very much like the feel, sort of like you're not knowledgeable to have it, you don't know how to gain it, you're all this other stuff. And so I'm just moving my mouse around in odd positions, okay? Just we're just gonna chill on that. um and so Say is the godling that has lived through horrible trauma, from the first book into the second book. We're from the first book, we're like 2,000 years in the future of this world. The world had changed radically in the sense of like godlings are sort of normal in the all around the world and blah blah blah, which is relatively fine or whatever. But so Say comes in and he's being a child and he's going to the book starts or relatively starts with like this interesting I don't know what to call it. It's like it's not it's like a short chapter of memory of like a memory event instead of the actual future event, which is something that goes on repeatedly within this book, which is reminiscent of the first book a little, in the sense of like the second book didn't really do this, to the extent of having memories be short 2 page, 1 page chapters, um, of past events that we as the reader aren't going to experience in the present but have impact, and they're short, quick, whatever. And we get this in the beginning of the chapter, the beginning of the book. We get it throughout the book, and basically all of those memories lead to the reveal that we all know will happen. By early mid. We know the reveal. I don't know. Anyway, so the story goes: Say falls in love with these two children, or like these two Arame children, which Arame was in the first book, like the head honcho, kingdom, hierarchy, monarchy of the world, right? And Arame have fallen from this title, through to the political changes and the magical changes of the world in the last 2,000 years. And Say every so 4th years or so, he goes bothers these children, and he falls in love with both of them. And it's an interesting tale because it's like a really bad long distance relationship where you like don't talk to this person for like a year or so, and you just like think about it. You think about your relationship and like imbue thoughts that might not exist in reality, and that's their relationship. Okay, sums it up. And yeah, I don't know. It's but you know it's sort of cute. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, so they have a love relationship between Say, Godling, and the two Arame children, which are brothers and sisters. Um, one is named Shahar. The woman identifying sibling, and the other one is named Dakota, the man identifying sibling, and it's interesting. It's interesting in how it's an interesting romance. I just feel like interesting. It's interesting. Like the whole godling thing is interesting in the sense of like the godlings are like thousands and thousands of years older than the humans. This dude has known them since children, but hasn't really been there a lot. Uh, in their life, but also been there in their life. So very. Mm, Basically, if I could sum up the story overall in terms of like spoiler alerts, plots, 'cause just going through each by each is hard. Each by each beat is hard for me, I guess. Basically, the story is just about say I'm a monster trope falling in love with two siblings and their tenuous relationship as siblings while also realizing that he is a parent, but also representing childhood because childhood relationships shouldn't be deep, they shouldn't be long, and so there's a conflict in that between the sibling RMAs and how he doesn't like deep relationships, but he wants one. He's lonely, and the children are sort of lonely due to the family hierarchy. And I'm super rich, and I'm destined for greatness, and so everybody's plotting against me, and so I don't really have real friends. Kind of vibe, friend, lonely versus say being I'm a godling, super old, the wisest, but also supposed to be a child, blah blah blah. This is conflicting emotionally, lonely, and this the story is just like the vibes of like trying to identify markers of childhood while also growing up as an adult child and the destruction of the world. All of this is happening at the same time. And that is a thing. All of that is happening at the same time. And my biggest problems, I like this book way more than the first two books, but my biggest problem with this series is that I just is the othering trope, but also like it's the othering prospects of being the I am a monster trope. I am dating a monster. The monster, labeling your partner as a monster for one problematic, and just like the relationships are just problematic in general. And I'm saying I'm eating this up, and I read it and I liked it, and I like the first book and I like the second book and I like the third book, but like it's annoying a little. It's aggravating. It's aggravating. The series is aggravating. This book has the same qualities of aggravations in it. But I like these vibes more. And I'm just gonna go over like the qualities of aggravation which I have with this series, particularly by using the I'm dating a monster trope, which is just like part of some of the elements of I'm dating a monster trope that you can expect, or the otherizing of your partner, the otherizing of your own culture versus your partner's culture, the perfect uh the perfect saucy sex, right? That's one. And then maybe I'm a subplot of I might be a monster too. All being in there together, and I hate that. I just hate every single one of them. Well, I don't hate the sex being saucy and perfect, but it's not what I want from my books, honestly. So it is a little. It's part of the trope, but I think it's a little you know, not what I want. So we're gonna what I really wanted to talk about was the otherizing elements and how it's in all three books and how they deal with it and my problems with it and why I'm so aggroed while reading these books. I'm so aggro. Every single moment I'd be like so aggro every single time any of the pairings were next to each other. Um just because of how this trope works out and what you can expect from this trope of otherizing your partner's culture and stuff like that, and how it presents, um, and how it predisposes young youths to who read these stories to do such a things in real life. And I know it's not the author's intention, or I believe it's not the author's intention because I read her acknowledgments, okay? But I could just be like, labeling things that aren't true, but I read them and they're great. um, but like the idea is mostly just like the fact that how should I say it? Like when you are labeling your partner as a monster, you're already otherizing them, right? You're already being like, oh, they're different than me. And I just think when you are having in a relationship, you should look for what's similar to each other and what's similar that is important to you in that relationship, instead of just being like, differences. And that's a major point in these I'm dating a monster trope, is the differences between each other. And then the other minor areas of that is saying like, okay, so they're a monster, um since they're a monster, but they're not like the other monsters. It kind of vibes with their not like the other girl trope, right? And they're not like the other monsters. They love me, or like they'll take care of me, or they mean well, or blah 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 blah. And that's why I picked this one particular, right? And or they're what I want due to like some cultural wanting of myself attainment or whatever. So attainment of like self fulfillment, emotional fulfillment, or something like that. But like the what is it called? The major problem with that trope of like otherizing your partner and giving them excuses for these differences, which comes with the I'm dating a monster trope, is for me particularly, I see a lot of times that these chicos, these main characters who are just so dumb, to be dating put themselves in these dating relationships, is that they start to normalize um the othering in terms of other ways, and it's just like it's like a domino effect of like aggro annoyance for me, in terms of, so let's going back to the first book of like Yane's and Naha's relationship. So it's in the first book we have Yane, which are our lead character, a distant related Arame, gets put up in the beginning of the story to be fighting for her life in political machinations that are going on to claim who will be the next in line to be the heir for the Arame. What are they? Kings, queens, monarchies? I'm gonna assume they're a monarchy. I'm gonna assume they're a monarchy, but they could be like some weird vassal system. It's not really well described. It's some type of clan thing. Um, she's the next in line to be the heir for chieftain. That's what I'm gonna call. And but also since the RMA and within the first book rule the world, she's sort of trying to help pick out the next ruler, but she has no political allies, and so she makes her alliances with the god Nahados. Nahados is the god of like darkness and chaos. He's a god of chaos, really, in terms of changing and blah 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 and all of this. And this just goes into that emo monster dating trope, right? I'm dating a monster. This is like totally in the vibe, right? This is totally in the vibe. And the problem I have within this first book, and how I got so aggroed in the first place to finish the book in 2 days, is that like their relationship, right? So their relationship is otherizing this god, saying, okay, these are how you're different from me. These are how the gods are different from me, and you guys are like murderers that I need to work with. And this is interesting. This is an interesting idea in terms of like, okay, so you know they're murderers. You know they're murderers. You know they kill people for so and so reason. Which they have reasons to, like they're sort of good reasons, but like you know that they do this, and you know that they are otherizing your own people, okay? And she doesn't declare herself. She doesn't like declaring herself as an RMA since she's a distant relative, and she sees herself more as like a different clan, right? But Arlie Yene, even though she sees herself as a different clan, you have to be real that she sees herself as a person, as a human person, and that murder is wrong, right? And so, like, even in this fundamental level of, like, maybe we like, the people who are the majoritively murdering and causing discomfort to might be the same people that she wants to cause discomfort to, too. It does persist, like, this idea of, like, I'm going to disregard the harm that you do to others of my culture and distant relatives and family because I love you, which doesn't listen to yourself. Like, because I love you, I'm just gonna disregard murder and genocide? No, 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 you're not. You're not supposed to. And, like, this trope does this constantly in terms of, like, Twilight, in terms of, what's that other vampire television show? Was it Vampire Diaries? In terms of, like, Book Eater, in terms of, like, these things which you read of the monster trope, which I read too many, and they're just like, I am just going to disregard this thing that I know you have done because you don't do it to me, and I'm going to disregard it on the idea of love. And this thing that you're doing is of this thing that you did or are doing is something which you are doing and that is hurting the titular characters, family, culture, people, society. Like, that is a truth. That being a truth, and then you're just gonna disregard it for love. And then there's the other side of that of love and how they're not hurting you per se. Like, you exist outside of your culture and outside of, like, this environmental, social, situational family structure that you have grown up in, the community, blah, blah, blah. You exist outside of it to love this person. What the? And then the other side of this othering effect, which I don't like, is just the idea of it can lead to just this other side of the othering effect, besides just the non-valuing of your own culture, that the main lead will do by loving this person is, quote unquote, is just the othering of that other person's culture as well, which I also feel to be an insult. I keep on hitting this mask against this mic, and I just, like, hear the tap in my headphones, and it's just like, and editing. What was I saying? I was saying, like, the othering of the partner's culture in terms of labeling them a monster is also very annoying for me, because it's not only like, I see you as different than your culture and you're not the same thing, type of vibes, which is just, like, weird. It's also just the reality of, like, you're putting up the growth situation of which this person who you have decided to be your partner, who decided to say, I quote unquote love you, or I quote unquote want to have a relationship with you, and you're saying something like, well, you know, your culture is weird and it's odd, and you guys are monsters, but, you know, you're not like the other monsters. Like, that's an insult. That's an insult. If you said that to me, it's like, you're not like the other girls, not like the other black people. Like, it's slightly, it is in a sense an insult, and depending on which culture you have attributed to saying I'm not like, I'm going to be more vehemently angry than others, because some of them I identify more than so others. And that's, like, the problem of this idea of, like, I'm dating a monster, is, like, they are taking a part of somebody's culture, a part of somebody's history, identity, and they're just labeling it the monster part, which is odd. They're labeling it the monster part, and they're like, they're not like the other monsters, and I'm just like, what? What? And that's what I'm upset about, and I'm clearly still upset about it, thinking about it in terms of the first, second, and third book. But I like the third book more because I like books where it's where somebody who is themselves saying that they are a monster and then dating. It just works out better usually, and I like it better. But there's another aspect within the first two books which are completely and utterly I am dating the monster. Having them being the lesser of the monsters. It's just the subtrope saying that I am a monster. What? And it's basically this idea of if you are dating a monster, what usually happens in these tropes is, okay, you have labeled some other group the monstrous group, and you start dating them, and then you realize that you're a monstrous group too. And that's, man, it's been so long, since I read that one series with the, like, wings and stuff. A YA series. I might go back to it. I haven't finished it. I can't remember. City of, I don't know. But that was a problem with that one too. uh, and it's just like, this is like a subtopic trope, a subtrope within this trope of I'm dating a monster, realizing that you're also a monster, and I just find that to be also problematic. I find it to be problematic because I don't like it when you're labeling your partner a monster, so of course I don't like it when you label yourself a monster, and label yourself in such a way, and they might not say, oh, I'm a monster, like, exactly. Though they might use a different word in terms of the series or whatever. But you know from how the series has been portraying that word, it's basically just a replacement for the word monster. You use vampires, you can use zombies, you can use werewolves, you can use, dragonborn or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter what the word might be. You just know from reading the series that they are using that word as as an insult. They're using it as like slightly as an insult, and it's annoying. I hate that. And then and so that were my issues with the first two books, right? And like those types of vibes. And the other one is that I just felt like the sex scenes were too good. I thought they were too good. They were too good. They follow the trope of like the emo-ish I'm dating a monster, so it's like kind of like what's it called? It's like some like SM type of sex scenes, downplay, and then perfect lips and all this other stuff. I'm just not into it. I like an awkward sex scene, and so I'm just like every single one being perfect is just like, I know they're gods, I know they're godlings, I know they have magic, I know they can do it, but I like it to be awkward. I like it to be like it's perfect, and even with the awkwardness and like that reality of like this is your first time with this person, it's probably not going to be as hot as what they're saying, and so I'm just like, but that's part of one of the cliches of the I'm dating a monster trope. It's just like it's perfect for some reason. First time, second time, third time, never not really perfect. And I just like, that's not really it. But so those were my distinct feelings about this trilogy as a whole. I wanted to start a common journal, which I did not do, for the third book. I was gonna try to like vlog myself reading it, but it's just annoying wearing the mask while reading, of course. But I did do some sticky notes. Can you see that? Sticky notes? I only did like 2, so I didn't really do my job. But I did like this book a lot more, and there are reasons why I like it more. Why I like I'm a monster and I'm dating more than I'm dating a monster as a trope, because I'm a monster and I'm dating. It's usually this idea of like something like how should I say it? It's like if the book is about them valuing themselves or them coming to value themselves. And that's usually what it's about, and I'm behind that, even if they are labeling themselves monsters to proclaim this type of growth as a character. And that's what this book kind of does for the third book. We, as I was saying, grows from childhood to adulthood, slightly, in terms of like mental understanding and mental maturity, for love life and for relations with other people. And I'm behind that. I think main character being a monster knows they're a monster in the beginning of the book, and so forth, and then they try to grow beyond what they were, is a book that I can get behind and eat up and be and pleasurably happy about, even with every sex scene being almost and always perfect. But this book, I like this book a little bit more in terms of just like the awkwardness and like wanting and not having. Um, in terms of not just like, oh, I want sex and being denied it, which I made a note saying like this is the awkwardness I like, like right here when I finally started doing it. So in this one scene, Jakarta, which is like the boy grown up, of the one of the relationships which Say will have within the book. Spoiler alert, right? um, um, what's his name? Say it's just being horny, and Jakarta's like, I'm tired. Like, no. And I just love that. I just like, oh, I'm not, a piece of fresh air in terms of like how like a normal relationship will work in terms of like those types of like wanting but being okay with the no. Because there's going to be a yes eventually, or there's going to be like something else because you're hanging out with that person. So it's not like a no is a no. It's more like a no is like this isn't the right time or place right now. Like, wait, bud. Um, so that was good. Some other good scenes. I have no idea what this one is a note of. Oh yeah, this is Oh, so 30 plus 50 is 80. So 80 pages till the book ends, we get the big reveal of Say actually being a father. But we kind of all knew that for like 300 pages before that. So I just marked down not shocking right there. So that was not needed to explain about. But the other things I liked about this book in terms of not just the person's growth, and not just some awkward relationship moments, which I love it when they're awkward. Um, um, it's it's the idea of markers of childhood, or like um pillars to what childhood looks like. I don't think all the pillars were exactly right, and I think that, but I also understand like within the book and within this like idea of like godhood and godlings, they decide what their limit is based off of what their power is. Um so Say is supposed to be the epitome of childhood as a god, and so he makes acts of childhood, which for him particularly, he decides childhood's about mischievousness, wanting what you can't have, and stuff like that. And I think those are valid things to childhood, yes, but I think that's not all of what childhood is. And so his is like, oh, I'm growing, and like one of the things he was saying is, I'm growing and I have to be mature, and maturity is a sign of adulthood, and that hurts me. And as a character, every time he does something adultish, he gets hurt because he's supposed to be the god of childhood. Um, I don't think that's true. I think as a mature child, as the child who was told I was mature, I think maturity can be a part of childhood, especially when you are a child with little children in your household, or older children in your household. Childhood is really not just childhood can't be explained just through their mischiefs, understanding and wanting what you can't have. There's childhood is like an ambiguous state of not knowing. I think it's a better pillar to it. So like sometimes when the Say was being hurt, I was like, oh, I did that in childhood, or like I experienced that, or I know children who have experienced it in their childhood, and I wouldn't say that they weren't children for experiencing those things or losing their childhood over experiencing those things. And so I just felt like that was a weird. I understood why it was a concept based off of how the magic system was set out from the first two books, but I also felt like it was weird now being explained based off of the character of childhood having his own book. which was just weird. It was just weird. I think it's kind of weird. I think it's kind of weird saying that maturity isn't childhood. I think it's kind of weird assessing that going through adolescence isn't childhood, because there's a lot of children who go to puberty like before they're 12. So like to say like, oh, childhood, lost it. Like, no, that's not true. And then or like having understanding of certain things results in you not being a child anymore. Wanting certain things results in like losing childhood, which I don't think that's true. I think and that's why I think it's more of like an information. At some point you have gained the information needed, or childhood's about the ways in which you don't have a lot of information, and how you gain more information takes a different form under childhood, and the consequences of gaining that information, it looks different than the consequences in adulthood. And I think it's also like this idea of like adolescence is like a new idea. Relatively, like YA books, they haven't been a thing for like the last. It's like a new concept, like 30 years old, maybe like 45 years old. I don't know. Like, why is a new concept? So for adolescence not to be a part of childhood just seems like odd. It seems like odd to me. Like, adolescence, you're still a child. Still a child during adolescence. You go through adolescence. Anything you go through adolescence till childhood, you still don't know anything. And then toddler age, child. Preteen, child. Every single one of these be childs except for babies. They can't gather knowledge. So not child. Childhood's about how you gather knowledge. That's my opinion. I just decided that now. Babyhood's how you can't gather knowledge, and adulthood's how you use the knowledge that you have gathered in childhood to assess situations as an adult. Nah. And you do it really bad in early adulthood. As an early adult, I'm going to say that's it. And that's how you mark the difference. How bad you are as an adult using information you already have to assess more information. And so that's my tea on this book. Overall, I liked it. I'm just going to say I like the trilogy. And I would recommend it to anybody who eats up this kind of stuff. But it's also just a reality of like, it is what it is, in the sense of like, man, I was very much aggroed. I think every single, except for the third book, which I liked more, I think every single character shouldn't have gotten together with the people who they did, just because of how toxic their relationship was, how toxic their relationship was. I think in the ending book, because they skipped, and in the second book they skipped part of like the love actual being a thing. They had like a time skip between what's her name, Ori Shoth and Tempest, and then they fell in love. Time skip later. And that was probably fine. I don't know. I just have to assume that the time skip was all great and the slow growth of love or whatever. But like as a reader, but romance-wise, this romance book wasn't particularly cute. In terms of like cute cliche romances, no like open door or anything, fantasy worlds kind of stuff there. So it's not really expected. There's also just the idea of something So it wasn't really cute. It was more like saucy romances. With your monster boyfriend, girlfriend. I mentioned in the beginning one, I really liked the genderqueer aspect of the gods. Also, like the, I like the genderqueer aspect of the gods and how the gods could shape in and out of different, gender, looks with ease, godhood being a thing. And the bisexuality of the human characters as well was pretty interesting, or having bisexual characters was pretty good. I really liked the second book for having a disabled character. That was interesting. I know it's like normal in fantasy for us to have some books with that, so that was cool. Relatively interesting. It was relatively cool. I think I'm saying it's relatively interesting because at the same time, in fantasy and sci-fi, we oftentimes like fix the issue of the disability like it needed to be fixed. Um, and that was part of it in the second book, so I was like, it's relatively cool. But then later on in the book, she does become completely blind. I dropped the book. Um, she does become completely blind, so it's not like it's not like the fix is a permanent fix, but it's also like she lost her thing that she lived with, the magic that was her prosthetics. I mean, like, that's horrible. So you know, you know, um, so relatively, I really like the book. I probably now after talking to it, I'd give the series overall a 4 out of 5. Um, and just say like every book was a 4 out of 5. It's definitely something that you could read really fast and that was really good and sort of like unexpected in terms of like diversity and identity being used, even though it was such a YA aggro. I was so aggro the whole entire time. I also wanted to talk about this book. I got it from the library, as you know. I checked out them all from the library, but whoever had the book before me from the library really messed up the glossary, and it just was beautiful. So I'm gonna show that. I'm saying it was beautiful just in the sense of like in the first 3 pages of the glossary, they just wrote whatever they wanted. Like, look at that, look at that, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? They literally. I'm gonna take a picture of it and like whatever, I guess. But whoever this person is, I really appreciated it. It really took me out and ruined that ending moment where the ending came and they did the what is it, Cora, or whatever it's called. I should know. That wrap-up scene within the story. And then I turn the page after that wrap-up scene, and I get hit with the glossary, and the glossary is marked up in ink and Sharpie, and the Sharpie be all like, why are you reading this glossary? Which is just so beautiful. I just love it so much. It was just, it was just like, if I was an author, I would do that. If I was an author, I would totally mess up my own glossary in the back, especially 3 books in, so I understand. So the dude was like, okay, so we have our glossary of terms, right? And they wrote glossary of terms for idiots. 3 books, and you still don't know this stuff? It was perfect. That's exactly what I would write if I was an author. I would mess up my own glossary. And then they put their opinions about the things. Like, they said RMA. Like, the glossary has RMA. And then whatever the glossary is supposed to say for RMA, I have no idea. Because they wrote all over it in this Sharpie ink saying, assholes. That's what they are. You don't need to know anything else about them. And that's it. It's just so funny. Oh yeah, it was just I just whoever this dude was, I appreciated it so much. They have nice little drawings and you know exactly. Anyway, so that's that. That's the finished book. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna read next. I had a book haul. Um, Unintentionally, I went to like 2 different used bookstores over this week. I said I would stop buying books and I would only read books at my library. So, you know, sometimes you fail at saving money, and then sometimes you fail a little bit better at saving money. And I just want to say I failed a little bit better because it was only used books that I got. But yeah. So first used books. First used books. I got Your Heart Is a Muscle, The Size of a Fist by Sunil's Yapa. I have no idea what it's about. It's not on my book to read list, but I think I heard of this before. I'm gonna read this, not this week. Of course, the other books that I got from my book haul is The First Men in the Moon, an H.G. Wells book. I haven't read it yet. I actually don't think I read any of H.G. Wells' books. H.G. Wells is like, I read a lot of short stories at that time period, so I probably read multiple H.G. Wells short stories, but don't quote me on that because I don't know what I read. And then this is an aspect that part of the aspect of this should be this YouTube video is figuring out what I read. I also got the 3rd book of Saga. I've already read it. I already read Saga. I've been reading Saga for a very long time in my life, but I don't own all of the volumes. And so basically I just bought something that I have already read. I already know. I think it's the one where, like, based off of this picture, I think it's the one where what's it called? I can't even remember any of the names of the characters, but basically this is the one probably where our female lead realizes that her ring that does the what's it called, translating, is his engagement, is the engagement ring of another chica. Maybe a person dies. Um, yeah, yeah. I think I'm right. I might be wrong. It's really be right. I might be wrong. Oh, I'm wrong. That's not it. This girl already definitely knows it by the third book. The book starts out with that feeling of loss. Um, I think the second book is yeah, volume two. At the end of volume two, dude's dad dies, hits him hard. Um, hits him hard. That's the book. Dude, dad dies. That's how the volume two ended, and so that's how volume three began. I remember that. Not the worst death in the series, if I'm gonna say. The next book from my book haul is where are they? Okay, the next book. There was another book I got. I have no idea where it is. Oh yeah, I got some Marxist book, I think. Anyway, so next book from my book haul is this old chess book. I'm probably not going to read it anytime soon because it takes me a while to cover chess books, as said earlier, but it's The Chess Companion by Irving, Chernev. I don't know who that person is. Not if they are a master or were a master. I don't know who they are. So my studying of chess people is low. I also got an Orson Scott Card book from my used library locally. This dude is relatively one of my favorite sci-fi authors. I'm just gonna say it. Like, there is something great about Scott Card because, like, okay, so like as a sci-fi person and somebody who read sci-fi growing up, if you have a non-financially capable library, or you go to a non-financially capable bookstore, or you just like go to a place that has books and none of the books are new, and you know that they are living on the ends of their finances, there's going to be Scott Card as well as Star Wars, and so as a sci-fi person, you're going to read them. You're going to read the Scott Card books, and you're going to realize that you like his writing, and you, as a youth, you might get into Ender's Game or the sequel spin-off with that other dude, and you might get into his Western things, like his Western sci-fi, whatever it was called. Like, he's a good sci-fi author to read when your library has no money and you go to used bookstores. So, you know, if you're just picking on a rando sci-fi person, I would recommend Scott Card, even with everything else in there. In his books. I also got another chess book. It's called Chess Games to Remember, selected by L.A. Horowitz. Yeah, both of the chess books use the old notation system, which is slightly annoying, but, you know, you get through what you get through. So that's the thing. I don't know if I talked about Nana, so I'm just going to say, like, I read that over this. Of course, I read comics, like, the day of. I get them usually, and it was fun. It was exactly what I expected in the funness rating for a leisure read, and a comic read. It's not like I hadn't watched the anime before, so I just really like this. This is one of my favorite shoujos, so being able to own it, just like being able to own more Saga, even if it's just used buys, is a win for me. What else? What's the next book I'm reading? Or an update on my leisure reads. I don't know how I'm gonna break up this video. I think part of me might break it up into a book haul section. Part of me is thinking about breaking it up into having a different video on what I'm reading as a leisure. and breaking down like, oh, an update or my leisure reads, which could be better than just vlogging me reading, because then I won't have to um, stop reading. I don't know how people vlog videos of their reading. Like, I mean, I guess they, after they read the amount of pages they read, they go and make a short video on what they just read. But I don't know. I'm just like, I didn't try that hard, but there is a difficulty in that, in being able to be like, oh, it's time for me to be self-reflective, but outwardly. And so that's the thing. So I don't know. So basically, I don't know how this video is going to be broken up in. We're going to figure that out after this video. I'm also started reading The Troop. It's also part of my book haul, my library book haul. I think that's what I'm going to call it. There's another book I checked out. I have Blood of Elves checked out, and I have I have another book checked out, but I don't know what it is. I have the next book for the Southern Reach trilogy by Vandermeer checked out. I think it is Authority. I think it's called Authority. I don't know where it is. Oh, so that's that. So those are my book haul, or the books that I have bought, as well as books that I have checked out recently. We'll see how I break up this thing. Maybe I'll mention I'm breaking up this thing. Maybe I'll edit that out. I have no idea. Well, no idea if this mic works or if this mic was too light. I think it was kind of light. I don't know. I think it was kind of everywhere. Who knows? Might put the gain up, put it on the desk. Might stare. Might change the camera. We'll figure this out. I might change my mask too. I have other masks. What's it called? I'm a fan of Fiona the Dawn, or yeah, that's the English name. I'm a fan of Fiona the Dawn, and I have a mask of I forgot the character's name, and I'm saying I'm like a huge fan. I have a mask, and I forgot the character's name. It's the guy with the squirrel. I have his mask, and I might make some other masks. Want to make some masks. Want to make some D&D stuff. So hopefully, as this recording goes on and stuff, will fill up with my D&D stuff as I move it there. And then hopefully you'll see more of my mask. And we'll figure out which one I want to wear. And I'll figure out which one I like most and how I like making them as I wear these. Sometimes they be annoying. Anyway, so thanks for your time.